Um, all right, y'all, we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, welcome. We're glad to have you with us today.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. We're excited to see some familiar faces and some new faces. My name is Maria Fernández here with my dear friend and colleague, Kelly King Jackson, and we are here for part two of the work with Between Us, strengthening board chair and executive director CEO partnerships. If you joined us for our first webinar in May, welcome back. If you are new, no worries. We will be sending you the video and deck from our first session, but these are also meant to stand alone to both build on, but also provide a window to other areas of partnership that you may be interested in. So I'll get us going, and Kelly and I will share back and forth. But just want to start by, again, thanking you for investing the time in the work of your organization and in yourself and in your partnerships with your in your governance and your roles. So just want to start with a couple of framing thoughts here. The first is that this is a conversation, so you are welcome and encouraged to come on camera. We will be recording the session, as Kelly said, but we won't be showing your faces. We'll only have us as the speakers. And you're always welcome to drop a question in the chat. If you would like us not to call your name, you're welcome to change your name to anonymous, or say you want to be anonymous so we don't name you. We want this to be a space where you can maybe share some candid pain points, and so want to make sure that we respect your confidentiality in that way. Also, this session is intentionally, pretty intimate and small because it's going to be interactive. So we're going to be pausing as we share some of the lessons of things we're seeing to hear from you. Hear from you what's working, hear from you what questions, ideas, thoughts, thought partnership you want. So this is definitely a space for that. Kelly, what
Yeah.
else?
Yeah, I would just add also that Maria and I have been board members. We've been both good board members and not so good board members. So we'll also be sharing just some real examples of our experiences as well. So our professional experience, but our practical experience. So just wanted to lift that up. You are not alone wherever you are in your board journey. So, yes, thanks for being here.
Yes, 100%. And then at the end, we'll be sharing the deck. We'll be sharing resources. We're not gatekeeping here. We really want to make sure that you have as many resources and supports you need to do your work. So a little bit about me, as Kelly mentioned, and I'll pass the floor to her to keep us moving. Maria Fernandez, I'm dialing in from San Antonio, Texas, where I've been living the past 14 years and have had the honor of working here in Texas, as well as the Bay Area and different places throughout the country. My focus started with leadership and coaching, and then realized that a lot of the conversations I was having with executive directors was around their relationship with their board. And so now that has become an area that I work in quite a bit. And, after a few years, I was like, I want more resources. I really want to, learn more about this area deeply and be able to have resources for my clients. So I am board certified. They're the leading organization on nonprofit board development. And so you can see a little bit about what I do. But as Kelly said, there's things that we've done well, I think, in trying to support executive directors as board members, and maybe things that we wish we could have done differently. So we're all kind of in this together. Kelly, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, y'all. Maria and I have had a chance to work together for the past several years. I'm in Houston, and so I've been in Houston for about 19. This is our 19th summer, and it has been a really great experience to move from having lived on the East Coast and the West Coast to move to the South. Most of my clients are in the South. I do mostly leadership coaching, but I also do capacity coaching with social impact organizations, and so to Maria's point, hearing a lot about boards and where people are grappling or curious or having success with their boards. A lot around conversations around what does equitable governance look like right now. And so for me, having been both a board member and a board chair, I really see board work as leadership work. I don't see it as charity work. And so Marie and I thought our different skill sets would bring together a great way of thinking about some of the big questions that folks have around their board. So 25 years in this work, almost 30, I can't believe it. Nearing 30 years of seeing all different types of organizations. I've been both a working on the front lines, but also a funder, and so I've seen it from both perspectives. So again, we are looking forward to today's conversation.
Awesome. So let's get into it. Before we start, those of you who are in group spaces a lot, we just want to make sure we're having some group invitations here. Some of us know each other, others of us don't, and we may be sharing some vulnerabilities here, us included. So we just wanted to make some invitations for our time here today. Again, some of these will be very familiar to you, just encouraging you to speak from your own experience. If we have anybody else who joins us who may have a board chair and a CEO in the same room, want to make sure that they're speaking from their own perspectives. Again, just deep listening is something we value a lot and we think is really important for strong board chair, executive director relationships. There may be differences and similarities in our work, so just encourage you to lean in with that with curiosity. Probably this is one of the most important ones. We are excited for you to share any of these learnings or lessons with other folks that you work with, and that stories that people share specifically stay here. And so we make that ask of you. And then, this will be a good intimate size. So we want to still encourage anybody who does want to speak up and contribute, feel free to come off mute. And be able to share your experience, whether it be by voice or on chat. So we're really wanting to encourage that today. And then, Kelli and I have known each other for a while. So, Kelli brings a lot of humor. I think we both try to bring honesty. And I think we're really proud of really trying to listen for and understand the cultural context that we're all coming from. I think that's what we feel like makes this space unique that we want to invite leaders to. So, if there's anything else that you need to engage here, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if it all works with you, then we can get started.
Yes. And we always like to say we like to see people and talk with y'all. Please feel free to eat, tend to yourself as you need to. But we are happy to have your presence. Awesome. Mm-hmm. So let's hop into it, Maria. So we deeply believe that summer is a valuable time for boards, and we often see that a lot of leaders are wasting summer. We know that people go on vacation. We know that people need breaks. And we think that summer is an underutilized time to queue up for what often ends up being really busy fall times for our organization. And so this graphic here is to remind us that this kind of board can wait until September energy often leads to us not having our updated candidate list. We haven't started working on our board retreat that we want to have in the fall. The chair has been disengaged. Some people's chairs have ghosted them. They haven't been able to get a response from their chair. Not a lot of fundraising happening because everyone's eyes and energy hasn't been focused on the organization. And then, September comes and everyone's like, oh my God, why are we so behind? What happened? And so we really want to make sure that this isn't the September that y'all have, and that we can use the next 6 weeks to really, or 4 weeks to queue up a really productive and energizing fall for your organizations. Anything you want to add here, Marie, before I move us? Awesome.
Okay, we'll just start with a couple of quick kind of trivia things. Those of you who follow some board work might have seen these in the past few years. So I think the message here is that you're not alone. And so just to, get us kind of our thoughts moving a little bit, brains thinking, a couple of kind of trivia stat questions we have for you, and feel free to drop these in the chat or speak them up. But some of these are surprising, some of them are not. The first one is, what percentage of CEOs say that they don't have the right board members to build trust with the communities they serve? So feel free to use the chat, drop it in the chat, say, what do you think that percentage is? CEOs who said, well, nope, we don't have the right people right now.
Maria, you'll have to call them out because I can't really see the chat.
Okay, yes. Okay, so I see 70%, 80%. It feels that way. Yes, for sure. So let's go to the next slide, Kelly. The answer is 49%. Full disclosure, this is a 2021 number, but those numbers really haven't changed in the past 5 years. Maybe even now, even more. So I
Well,
agree with
yeah.
your perception of that. So really, this is the time when summer really is a time where nonprofit CEOs report that they're looking for new board members. So definitely there's a window here, and we want to encourage you to find these other times. That's really an ongoing process.
Yeah.
But summer is a good time to do that. Let's do two more. Let's go to the next question. What percentage of nonprofit CEOs say burnout is very much a concern in 2026? Again, I think this number just came out this month,
It's been
in the
making
last
the
month or
rounds
two.
on LinkedIn.
Right? Yeah, I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
Drop it in the chat. What do you think? 60%, 90%? Daddy,
Look,
yeah.
I'm gonna say 100%.
That's you know what? Okay, I think these numbers are off. I think they're. Let's go to the answer, Kelly. Here, 46%. This was from the Center for Effective Philanthropy that just came out this year. And so again, you're not alone. Folks may be somewhere on that spectrum. Maybe not everybody
Yeah.
set up, to 100, but they're close to it. So again, we want to share these numbers because it just brings the importance of how critical it is for executive leaders to have a strong board chair and a strong board to really carry this work together. Let's
And
jump one
Maria,
more.
before
Yeah,
we
go
go to
ahead,
the next
Kelly.
one, this
Yeah.
number has increased in a very short period of time, right? So I
Oh,
think a lot of
mm,
us can recognize coming out of the pandemic, but we have just grappled with who we are as a social sector. So this number, I don't think is surprising to a lot of folks, but I think the rate at which it has increased is something that we should definitely be paying attention to.
oh yes, yes, yes. Good point. That's a big jump. What other things are jumping 30%? Last one. What percentage of nonprofit CEOs have a written succession plan in place? What do y'all think that percentage is? Yes, just that emoji. Dare I ask? 30%, 20%. Okay, okay, we're getting there. Let's see the answer to that one, Kelly. All right, y'all were close. Very good, 27%. So again, I think this is also not the most recent number, but it really hasn't changed much.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is really the moment to ask, what happened if what would happen if your ED wasn't here next year? So
Yeah.
November, December is not the time to be thinking about it. The time to be
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it is actually when someone gets hired or before they get hired, right? Having a
Yeah.
succession plan, no matter who it is, or when they're coming in, is important. And so
Mm-hmm.
again, just emphasizing the importance of really planning in
Yeah.
advance.
And
Anything
I,
else, Kelly?
yeah, I was just going to say, succession planning, from what I've seen, is that it always falls to the bottom of the list. It is
Mhm.
very rare where someone comes in and says, "Hey, I want to work on my succession plan," and nothing else gets in the way of that. And so I just want to name that there's so many competing priorities that we know that the senior leadership is having to grapple with, that this feels very, very difficult. And just the world in which we live, we need things for everyday life, right? So my mother now has dementia, and I need to be on FMLA and may have to step in and out. So maybe I'm not gone for a prolonged period of time, but I need flexibility. A succession plan is super helpful for that, right? There's a sudden death in the family. You all know what these scenarios are because you've experienced them. And so it is something that is very hard to get folks to prioritize, but really, really critical to the continuity of services for the organizations that we are supporting. And so just want to lift up the tension that leaders hold trying to prioritize the succession planning. Yeah.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Kelly, some of these things. Whoops.
Oh, we're
Uh,
back.
no, that's okay. Well, you can ignore the next piece because the Google changed one of the graphics. But yeah, that and again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a departure, a CEO departure, but it can be medical leave, right? Temporary medical leave. And so what happens in the interim? So that's a really important point.
Yeah.
Um, So for today, we can jump to the first one, Kelly, the slide 13. Um, Somehow it changed the little icons on there to words.
It's okay.
Um, but really, what we can do in an hour. There's so much we can talk about board partnerships. Why we have this series. But the three areas that we wanted to talk about today, and again, we want to take a pause between each and hear from you about what's working for you. What questions do you have? What are some of the things that you're thinking about? And so we're going to talk about three areas that we previewed that in our announcement of this webinar. The first one is really about board recruitment and engagement and prospecting. This is a season where you can be doing that prospecting and identifying new board members. And it's something ongoing, but this is kind of a good time before people are going back, sending kids back to school and programmings are starting. And so this is a good
Yeah.
time. So I'll be talking about that. The second one is having a fall plan. So after the session, we'll share a one pager that you're welcome to adapt and apply in your board chair executive director work. So you'll get that at the end of the session. So you have something to start with. And then the third one Kelly will be talking about is relationship investment. So again, a common theme in the series is about the importance of relationships. So we're going to make sure to talk about that. But let's start with the first one.
Yeah.
Practice prospecting season and board engagement. How many of you right now, those of you who are on boards or are CEOs, EDs, are in the middle of identifying new board members?
You can do a thumbs up,
Thumbs up, put it in the chat. Me, yes,
thumbs
we are.
down,
Okay, cool. Yes, thumbs up.
sideways.
Right? It
Yeah.
also seems like we either have a vacancy or we may have engagement that we think we might need
Yeah.
a change, or maybe there's missing skills or experiences that we need. And so this really is a particular window where you can have those kinds of conversations with prospective board members. And, here we're really talking about real conversations through relationship building. I know some organizations have really formal processes to vet candidates. And so by no means am I saying not to do that. I mean, that's an important part to figure out where it's a match. But I think the idea of building relationships and interest
Yeah.
along the way is kind of more important, like learning about that person, where might their interests match your mission and what you're looking for, and really starting from a place of a conversation. And again, having a sense of what is it that you're looking for in new board members? Are you, looking for people to connect you to other resources or people? Are there specific skill gaps or experiences that you're looking for? So there's lots of really great board matrix tools, and I think we have one in our previous deck that we can share with you so you can
Yeah.
be able to do a little bit of that assessment. This is a place to think about where you want to find them. Your funder networks, other EDs. Maybe some people might be coming off another board, not because they're overcommitted or they're tired, but they're looking for something different. Alumni in our network, community events. So when we get to the conversation, I'd love to hear from you where you're finding board members or where you've been looking for them. And again, this last point about the vetting being starting with curiosity, not the ask. Right. And then it feels high stakes. When I know I'm about to make an ask, I'm like, I keep putting it off. So having, starting from a place of conversation more than a particular ask,
Yeah.
I think is a good way to do that. I'll stop there. Kelly, what else is coming up for you when we talk about board recruitment?
I mean, I think one of them is, do you have a budget for recruitment, right? Like we were doing some recruitment and I realized this is getting very expensive very quickly, right? So really thinking about what place in your community has the vibe that matches your organization and matches your budget. Also, how do you bring them into the culture of who you all are, right? And the informal, right, being a time to really build the rapport and to get a sense of people's energy, their questions. Because some people are great board members, but they may not be great board members for you. And you can sense some of that in just having these very casual touch points with folks to see, ooh, this person is really intense. And we are not an intense board, right? This might be a mismatch for that person. And they're going to be wanting us to level up, and that's really not where we are or who we aspire to be as a board. And then I think a pain point I often see is people recruiting the same leader. And so I think about a city like Houston or a city like San Antonio. There are many thousands of professionals, right? But you often see the same 5 to 10 names that are rotating, right, off of different boards. And so, how do we kind of break some of the, I don't want to say staleness because that sounds it's really negative, but how do we give other leaders a chance to step forward around an issue that they may be really passionate about and excited about?
Mhm. The last thing I'll say here is that, sometimes, to ask someone to join a board may feel like a high stakes meeting. So, one kind of way to begin that entry point is to, if you see, if there's someone in your network or someone that that could have some insight or perspective that you're looking for with an issue you're grappling with the organization, that's where you can invite them to coffee or tea and say, you know what, there's something I've been thinking about with the organization I've been grappling with you. I'd love your perspective on it. Do you have time for that perspective? And then you really can sit down, talk about something concrete. You could get a sense for their expertise, their sense of their interest and their energy. So it could be something like starting to engage people as a thought partner before you start engaging them as the full responsibilities of a board member. Of
Yeah.
course, being clear about the roles and responsibilities is important. I think sometimes as senior leaders or EDs, we may undershare what the commitment
Mm-hmm.
is. And so we do want to make sure that folks are prepared, but that early relationship building could even just be, who are people you can engage as thought
Yeah.
partners with your organization.
Yeah. Before
So
I flip,
yeah,
I know
please.
we want to move forward. Also, just make sure you also are updating each other, right? So whoever's doing the touch point, the prospecting, that they're keeping the rest of the leadership informed that this is someone that is actually going to be great for our list. They have a lot on their schedule, so we shouldn't reach them out to them again until the fall or the winter. And so making sure that you all are sharing that data so that you all aren't kind of tripping over each other, and able to use the information that you learn in your process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So a question we have for you, and this can be a space for you to bring up questions, thoughts, ideas from what I just shared. But who was the last person you brought on your board, and how did you find them? Um, where are you finding your people? Feel free to put it in the chat or just come off of mute.
We onboarded someone a year ago, and we run like a Maria, you know what, our program
Mhm.
does. And actually, Jeanette's an alumni also. So it was an alumni from our program from years ago that was also interested in board service. And
Awesome.
so we have our board application open this summer also, and it's not a requirement to be an alumni, but we'd like them to come like audit our learning sessions. And we actually have lots of people that have applied that have not done our programming. So it's interesting that people want to, like, they really care about what we do, want to serve on the board. And for us, we're like, okay, does it matter if you've like done our programming? How much have you been involved? What are the
Mhm.
other
Yeah.
skills? So we're about to like, we're recruiting now, and we'd like to bring on like 2 to 3 more people also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dana, for sharing.
Yeah.
The fact that you have a lot of interest is awesome, and
Mm-hmm.
that you have built-in folks who know your program well. So that's
Yeah.
great. Nettie mentioned through our membership network last year. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people within your network already.
And
And
we've
sometimes
heard of
it's,
boards who will say our board will always have, alumni representatives, right? Or people who have some lived experience with our work. So that's not uncommon, but what I'm hearing Dana say is there's also this informal kind of, we're seeing a natural affinity of our alum to our board, even though we may not have a formal policy. And I think that's really interesting data, and it's also really powerful storytelling to say that our alum are coming back and are continuing to be engaged because they believe in the power of our work. So I love that. Jeanette, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, similarly, we do have participants that will come in and volunteer to do things. on the board. However, what we did was a little bit different. So we asked somebody who specifically was in the volunteer role, was a volunteer leader, because we felt that that voice was missing. And so we went to the volunteers, and now we have someone on the board who specifically represents that voice for us.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So just for the recording, going to reflect that back, Jeanette, having volunteers, people whose voice may be missing. And so also looking to your volunteers who've already demonstrated, right, that commitment, that alignment, that connection and passion for the vision, and also the time and commitment it takes to do that. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get going to move two, Kelly.
Yeah. So move two. Let's talk a little bit about it. The fall plan. So, I really appreciate when I'm on a board and we have mapped out kind of the key themes. So if you do not already map out your meetings for the year, this is a great time to think about that. There's some things we know always happen, right? The board is always going to have to approve our 990. When do you need to have that done by? Depending on if you're a calendar year or fiscal year. You can say, this is the board meeting where we do that. I was on a board I rolled off last year. We knew that the December board meeting was always the time to approve our budget, right? And so it allows us to also be thinking about the content of what we need to get done in terms of the business of the work. So really encourage you to think about how do you get ready for 2027 by looking at the themes and the patterns and mapping that out. Really locking your retreat dates in early. We know the earlier you get something on the calendar, the more likely you'll get a high attendance rate. If you're going to try to plan a fall retreat now, you're going to have so many scheduling challenges because people have already scheduled. I have somebody on my calendar for November. And so it's really important for you to start thinking about, hey, when we have this year's retreat, we're actually going to pick the date for the 2027 retreat, but giving yourself enough runway. So think about fall to practice some of these habits to really set you up for success. Having an annual partnership review. So I highly encourage, whether that is a self-assessment, and we have a template that we're sharing in this deck, where everyone is assessing how was my participation this year, and that you are also giving them feedback. And vice versa, that you as the senior leader of the organization is also getting feedback from your staff and your board every year. So those two templates are available, but we often see that people haven't gotten feedback, right? There's a board member who's missed a lot of meetings. No one's reached out to say, hey, is everything okay with you? Can we be helpful in any way? Is now still a good time for you to be a part of the board? Because sometimes we're avoiding the hard conversations, or we're so busy we don't have time to stop. We know that we need to reach out to them, but we haven't prioritized that. And so really having a set aside time also makes it easy to say, I don't have time to deal with it now, but I know we have our annual check-in in October. And so here, I'm going to make a list of the things that I want to bring up when we meet. And then engagement goals, really thinking about who's doing what. How do you know that the contributions of your board member is working towards the goals that you actually set? So highly encourage folks to think about just drafting a mini plan. This is an area that AI can come in really handy, right? You can de-identify meeting notes and say, here are the meeting notes from our last 4 meetings. Give us some feedback, right? What could we do to make these meetings better? And then how can we plan for future meetings based on what we've already covered and the things that keep falling to the end of the meeting and we never get to, right? That thing, oh, we've run out of time. We'll talk about it next meeting, and it never actually gets done. So definitely something to think about as you're working to have a fall plan. Jeanette, I see your hand up, so go ahead and let me know what your question or feedback is.
Yeah, my observation is that I think a lot of times board members are not clear that this is part of their responsibility is to give that feedback. So I really appreciate your use of this tool, and I'm wondering, you're saying in the fall, so is this something that you would only do like once a year? Would you do it twice a year? Like, what's your recommendation on that?
Yeah, so feedback for the senior leader, I think once a year is sufficient. I think with the board, I would think about what your cycles are for bringing folks into your board. So I was on a board where we only brought people on once a year. right? And so that made it very easy for us to set timing. But if you're bringing on folks periodically, then you may want to have different touch points that align with your capacity, and your board cadence. Yeah, I would definitely look at those two. Yeah.
And just one thought there, too, Jeanette, is that so these could be annual, and then that's where the board chair role comes in, right? The board chair could be the one that they're meeting in between the regular board meetings. So if you meet monthly, those can happen, maybe every 6 weeks. You could do a step back, right? Kind of, you could get feedback on the support that they can give to the board on the support that you need as an ED, and then they could give feedback on how things are going, maybe things that they haven't heard one in a while in terms of an update or what's going on or questions that they have. So there could, or, if you meet quarterly, whatever, that's where some of the board chair and the ED can have some of that more informal, kind of shared feedback, so that by the time you get to the annual review, there really are no surprises, and you kind of can course correct, or, share from each other what you need.
Yeah. I was just going to add, you're probably getting also feedback at other touch points. So maybe you have 2 big events a year. Your staff is the one who's noting, we didn't have board participation, or the board was really involved and it was really helpful. Here's what would make it better for next year to have even more engagement. Those are also data points that when you're doing your touch points with your board members, you could say, I've been getting great feedback from the staff, right? Or here's what the staff would like to see more of, to be able to really leverage your networks, et cetera, et cetera. And so those micro bits of feedback, you don't want to lose those. And so how you track that, if you're an Asana person, a Google Doc person, but someplace that holds your board notes and reflections is a great place to keep track of that throughout the year. I'm going to skip us to our quiz, which still builds on this theme. So if September was tomorrow, how ready would your board be for fall? Do you feel ready? Do you feel not ready? Where are you on this continuum of 1 to 10? And welcome, Cassandra. What numbers do we have, Maria?
Yeah, your gut feel, just drop them in there, and then we can share more. So I'm seeing a 7, okay, an 8, okay.
Yes,
6,
to the organized people.
Okay. So I think we have everyone above a 5. Everyone's feeling somewhere in the middle to yes, I'm ready to go. 6, 7, 7, 8.
Awesome. Yes to the advanced people. I want to be on your board. Awesome. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, we called this relationship investment for a reason. This is really about the check-ins that really allow us to see things that are headed our way. And so meetings before the meetings, between the meetings, right? Having the executive director and the chair be aligned is super, super important. So the last board I was on the chair of was for my church. And the first thing I did was set up a monthly meeting as a recurring meeting on my calendar that I sent to our pastor. And she was like, do we really need to meet every month? And I was like, yes, we do, because I need to know what you need from me, right? And it makes it so that we're not trying to schedule around each other. If we need to release the time and give you back your hour of your time, awesome. But this was a standing meeting that we had on the calendar. It was very helpful for a lot of reasons, because sometimes it was a last minute thing. She needed my feedback on a grant. Sometimes it was a staffing issue that had far exceeded her capacity, and she needed the board chair to also weigh in, right? Not something that's common, but it was a pain point she couldn't move beyond, right? And so us having regular touch points, it doesn't have to be overly scheduled, but we knew we had this time on the calendar. It really made a big, big difference. And so it's not us scrambling to find a time to catch up, because we've been off the grid all summer, and then I need to know kind of what's happening. One-on-ones with each board member. So this can be something split between the board chair and the ED. It may be something that in a small organization is going to fall on the ED. Some of the large organizations have a whole board liaison, right? So a lot of this depends on the size of your organization and capacity. It's also important to think about when you say, I've heard a client say, well, our goal is to have 13 board members. And all I could think was that's a lot of relationships to manage. Because often when we recruit board members, we don't think about the relationship that is required for that we have to maintain for that board experience to be good and for us to leverage and maximize all that this person has to offer to the organization. And so that's a time for us to temperature check what's working for them, what's not, and things that ideas that they have, even things that they don't clearly understand about where the organization is going. That's a great time to work through some of those. And then the friction. Having touch points is also a great way for us to be able to move through pain points, right? I was in a board meeting. I was very unclear and I thought we went really fast. Can we talk about slowing down? Another one I hear from folks is around not really understanding the 990. No one wants to say, I don't know what this form is talking about. I don't know what fields are the most important. I'm just going to approve the 990. Versus saying, you know what, I need a little bit more support to fully engage with the 990. I was on a board, they developed a whole training on 990s that they made available both to the staff and the board, which made a big difference in my engagement to fully understand the financial health of the organization. So having these touch points allows us to address conversations that we tend to avoid. And then the other is around self-care. We have to take care of ourselves. And sometimes our board members need to step away. Maybe it's not forever, but maybe there's a season where they're going to be a little less available, but they still want to stay connected. Having investment in the relationship allows you to know these things and not be caught off guard. I had a client tell me recently that she had to call their board chair's wife because the board chair had not responded to her in 6 weeks. And she was not able to move a decision forward because she hadn't heard from the board chair. And so that told me, oh, wow, tell me about your regular meeting schedule. And she said, well, we used to check in twice a month, but that's fallen off the schedule. It's a good reminder that I need to reactivate that. And so that relationship is an investment. And I'm not a fan of Robert Rules of Order for a lot of reasons, but that's not where the relationship is formed and strengthened and developed. It's really in having touch points with the folks who've said that they really believe in the work that you're doing. So I wanted to lift up that this is an investment in the relationship that has to be tended to. And so I want to open it up to hear what is the relationship on your board right now that it feels like it needs your attention. You don't have to name names, but if you have a sense of some relationships that need a little care, we would love to hear a little bit about what's happening in your context.
And this could also relate to those of you who put 6 or 7s or 8s even, right? About how ready you feel. Like, are there some things from there related to the border relationships where maybe like, oh, this is a thing that I've been thinking about that, like, I love how you said that, Kelly, that needs care, that needs attention.
I can share, and I also have a question back to you. But so there's someone, I'm on the board of an immigration justice organization. I'm the vice chair. And there's someone on the board who has been really like disengaged for a while. And she, like, I'm aware of a lot that she has going on and her desire to be more engaged. And so I guess the question is, like, that's something that I can have a conversation with her and pay more attention to and kind of talk with her about that. But I'm curious, like, does she need to be engaged? Is that hurting the board by having her disengaged? Or, you know, every once in a while she jumps in and helps with something, and it is really helpful. So that's a question back to you.
I mean, My gut says yes. You need all your board members engaged. Um, what we hear from nonprofits and what we see from the data is funding is down. It's harder to fundraise. And so having any board member who is not fully engaged and who doesn't have the capacity to help you address that is not serving the mission. And so this could be a conversation to say, hey, we love that you're still passionate about us and you want to stay connected. Here's some ways that we would like to see that happen, because right now we don't think the board is the best place to maximize your interest with your capacity, right? It sounds like she would be a great, amazing volunteer to tap into certain things that she's really excited about or that fall within her capacity. But for what you need for the board, maybe not so much, right? And this is a tension that a lot of people face, which is they still like us and love what we do, they just don't have time. But being a board member requires the time to actually do the work that we need to get done. And a lot of us are very uncomfortable saying that to people who really care about us. This is why some people have advisory boards to say, we only need to see you twice a year. And maybe that's a better way to use some of your very influential, sometimes your big donors who don't have a lot of time. I'm a fan of small boards and then having an advisory board to keep those folks at the table. So that is also one way to think about it. Yeah. Thank you for the question. If others have suggestions for Lori, let her know. Cassandra, I saw your hand, and then Neri.
Hello. The development committee chair, we're working on that needs attention. That relationship needs attention. This will be her, we're going on her second year,
Okay.
and it started off great. And then I guess with other responsibilities related to her job, she wasn't as available. And once in a meeting, she was speaking, and then she kind of like wasn't there. Something happened at the job, but we made our budget. Well, we got close to our budget. We got within
Okay.
like 97% of our budget. It was a rough year to get there, and so in preparation for our new fiscal year, which started July 1, we're having our first we're having a pre-meeting to make sure we're set up for September. And so I am working to get her ready for the pre-meeting. So I got to have a
Yeah.
meeting with her before she meets with other members of the development committee to make sure she owns the agenda and doesn't like rely on me. Like I want to sit back and have her own
Yeah.
this part and then own the committee for the rest of the year. And so that's kind of where we are. And uh, see if she really, I don't know. She wants to do this, but
Yeah.
but she might have other responsibilities of that don't allow her to be here fully engaged.
Absolutely. Yeah, and this might be one of the hard conversations, which is if not her, then who? So as someone should we should always be prospecting, right? We should always have somebody in mind for the future. And so who would that be in the event that she says, I really want to do this, but I just don't have the time to be the chair? Because that's a very specific role that she's stepping into. Yeah, sending you a lot of good energy as you have that conversation.
Mhm.
Yeah. Neri, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name's Nettie, in South Florida, and yeah, I'm really excited to just like share everything that I've been learning here today. One of the things that I truly think requires attention in our board is how are we finding the balance between the skills that are needed to be advisors
Yeah.
to the organization and the lived experience, because and I came in as someone with lived experience, and
Yeah.
I didn't know what my responsibilities were as a
Mm-hmm.
board. And it's now been, I think, about 4 or 5 years, and about 2 years when I'm really actively learning and I'm realizing, like, okay, now I know I'm getting the hang of, like, okay, what are my responsibilities? Where do I need to have um, context and understand the context so I can give good information?
Yeah.
And I want to do that for the folks that are in that board now that are coming in, because I
Yeah.
think that's where the attention needs to be. It's like, how are we making sure we're having those check-ins regularly, right?
Hmm.
And the feedback part, to really get to what our folks need, what are they coming with already, and for them to understand, because I think I mean, I also agree with what folks are naming right now about the engagement. I think that's always at the table, right?
Yeah.
Especially in the political climate, if you're part of boards where there's a lot of social justice happening,
Yep.
and there's just not a lot of engagement sometimes. So I think that's part of it, right? Too, like, is for folks to understand what their role is.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm really excited to bring all of this to my board leaders. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I have a personal policy that I do not recommend folks with lived experience be rolled onto a board by themselves. So bring people in as a cohort so that you can do the skill building at the same time. Because what I've seen, especially I was in the housing and homelessness space, they would want someone with lived experience to sit on our steering committee, and then no one would provide them with any training to understand our governance process, all these big words we were using that is not how we talk every day. And so they would not be fully engaged, and then they would be frustrated and say, you all asked me to serve in this role, but I don't even understand what's happening, and I don't feel safe enough to even say that. And so when you bring people in and as a cohort, it also reminds us as a board that we have to be skill building with new board members. Because just because they were on a board or were they on a board in the past doesn't mean they understand our board, how we do our governance, what the culture is of our board, and that onboarding needs to be solidified and clear. And so when we do cohorts and bring in two at a time or three at a time, board members at a time, it allows us to do that in a small group. There's shared learning and
Mhm.
reflection. We don't have to do that every 6 weeks when we're bringing someone new on. And it really makes a difference in folks' engagement. So thank you for lifting that up, Neri. And it's something I think a lot of folks are trying to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah. And also that critical mass can help shift the power dynamic because
Yeah.
it pushes the other board members to think about what do we need to be doing differently, right? What have we been doing about in the culture about how we work that maybe hasn't even been working for us.
Mm-hmm.
But we do it because it's Robert Rules of Order and we do it because it's tradition, right? This is how we've always
Nope.
done it. So that I love that, Kelly. Like that critical mass kind of helps shift and surface some of the power dynamics and how you create a culture that's going to be inclusive of everyone being able to lean in and give their best contribution. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome.
Awesome.
All right, I love
All
this.
right. So, what else have you done? Are you doing to get ready for fall? We'd love to hear other things folks are playing around with or have on their agenda for the fall. If anyone has anything else to add.
I can share one thing.
Yeah.
This wasn't like an intentional, it was more just like happenstance, but we have a storytelling event every year and there are some raffles. And at last year's event, the person who won a raffle for like a wine tasting at Total Wine and More gifted it back to the staff and board. And so we had our, like, we went to this wine tasting together, and it was like a new staff member had just been hired. And so it was a really nice, like, relationship building and like and having an experience together outside of what we normally have together that I feel like strengthened us, brought us
Yes.
together, and kind of geared us up for the fall.
Yes. Yes. We want to have fun together.
Yes.
Yes, we want to get to know each other as humans. I love that so much. And kudos to the person who said, y'all go have some wine. I don't need any more wine. I love that for y'all. Yeah.
I love that. And, also, for many organizations, fall is when a lot of events happen. And so I think this is another time to be clear around like what is the expectation for board engagement at different events? You know, do you need and want everybody there, or how can folks tag team? And really what, you know, this one organization I work with in Corpus Christi recently, you know, that became their team building, right? When they're all working on something together, they get a better sense of the program. They're helping move vegetables around, you know, for this garden grow event. And so again, just building in some of that relationship building event. So it's not just meetings, you know, it's not just where those relationships happen. Just want to read a couple here. Y'all can see yourselves. Dana, you talked about we're creating a robust board member onboarding packet based on feedback from our newest board member. I love that. It's fresh pair of eyes. You know, the things that we assume are the things, lifting that up and just being more explicit in that. Cassandra, orientation for new board members in August and reviewing the board survey for grows and glows. Going back and looking at the data of the info you asked your board members to improve that is so key, right? Hearing that back from them, demonstrating your responsiveness, transparency. Also, the board retreat is scheduled for the fall, Cassandra. You're all like getting ready, you know, ramping up, ready to go. Jeanette, I think there's a question from you, comment?
I think something that we're doing that's a little different on one of the boards that I'm on is we're trying to strengthen the relationship between the board and the staff. The staff on this particular board is high functioning and very ambitious. And one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that they know to call on the board in order to help fill in some of those gaps so that they don't run themselves ragged. And I think the best way to do that is to have fun, like you said. So not having a meeting, but like in this particular case, we're going to go outside and we're going to do something together and 10-degree weather. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to do something really early in the morning. But yeah, I think the staff and the board relationship, I think in the past they've been jaded by having board members that were trying to insert themselves in places
to be staff.
And instead of coming as, you know, what do you need? How can we help? So I just wanted to share that.
I love that.
Yes. Love that. Love that. Well, we want to make sure we promised an hour and want to be mindful of time. So we want to share with you a couple of opportunities and ask of you as we close out our time together. So we shared kind of 3 moves out of many moves that you could be making and are already making. So the point of this was really not to overwhelm you, but really, you know, kind of create some 1-hour space for you to think about what is really surfacing for you as kind of the top thing, high leverage action that you could be taking this coming month that would be helpful to your work. So again, we talked about the prospecting piece, you know, so we're asking you to pick one and make a commitment to yourself to complete it in the next week is kind of our call to action and accountability partner and buddies to you. So one could be if you're looking into that recruitment space, you know, is there 2 or 3 or one or 2 coffees or teas that you can schedule with potential board members? Again, it doesn't have to be high stakes. You can be thinking about your next round of openings, but it's like who's someone whose perspectives or skills or background I trust or could really help my organization, and can I engage them in a conversation to be a thought partner with me? You know, those are some of the warm ways to enroll them in the mission of your work. Another option is the plan. So we're going to share a 1-page editable 1-page plan for you with the things that Kelly mentioned that you could be thinking of and planning. Or you may have your own, and these are ideas that you can fold into your existing plan. So, you know, take a minute, block 90 minutes, an hour with your board chair, or if you're board chair with your ED, to draft that one fall plan. Just kind of in a nutshell, nobody wants to read more these days, but what's that one pager that has your budget approval times, your, you know, end of the year review, when are you having your board retreat, you know, some of these key events, right? Team builders. And then the investing. So, you know, having that lunch or that one-on-one with that board member or board chair, or if you are on a board with the executive director, a key senior leader that you've been working on that maybe we've put off a little or schedules have been busy that you want to do. So anything else, Kelly, on this?
No, I would say think of your commitments. If you can make it today, you can put it in the chat. If not, you can message us on LinkedIn or reply to our email when we send it out. And then we have resources for you. So we're going to share the deck from our first session. We have some templates and tools for y'all. So when you get the slide deck, you can click into the link and get a copy of those. But we wanted to provide some practical things for you to have. And what's coming up? I know we're at time, so I'll just say We're going to do an in-person day-long training here in Houston. So if you are interested, that invitation will be coming out really soon. We would love to have you and really have some dedicated time to do some relationship building and work with your board chair and your executive director or CEO. We will also have more of these workshops. We're going to build in more time because the discussions are very rich. And then if you need dyad coaching, where there's coaching between you and the ED and the senior leader, that is available. And we're happy to talk about ways that we could support you in your work. But it has been a pleasure meeting everyone and hearing what's happening in your organization. We would love to receive feedback. And so if you want to scan the QR code now, it will also come out to you. But it's helpful for us to know what we are sharing is tracking, what other things you may need that we could be making sure that we are providing to folks in the future. But thank you so much for being here and spending your lunch hour with us today.
Yes, thank you. Well, we welcome other questions offline. Yeah. And yeah, we'd love to hear your feedback and any continuing interest you have. So,
yeah. Awesome.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all being here.